before the rain starts.
Okay. Everybody good? Good afternoon. I'm Mawuli Davis with the Davis Bozeman Johnson Law Firm. I'm joined by our co-counsel, Justin Miller, and we are here with the family of Messiah Young and Tanaya Pilgrim and supporters. And we have stood on these courthouse steps for different occasions, sometimes in victory, sometimes when things have not gone as we have planned. And unfortunately, we stand here at a moment where I think we can honestly say as lawyers, we are disappointed in our system, in the way this system has played out for these young people, these college students who were just minding their business when they were brutally attacked by these officers. So I'll talk a little more about that in a moment, but I'd like for Justin to share, and then we'll kind of wrap it up so that you can hear from these young people who have had to live through this, and their families who've had to live through this ordeal for these 2 years. Justin.
Good afternoon. My name is Justin Miller, Stuart Miller Simmons trial attorney. One thing that I want everyone to do is take a look at the video, and you can go back and you can find it. You'll see it on all the news outlets. The video shows you what's going on. And what it shows you is that the force used by these officers was not commensurate with what was going on that night. These young people were attacked, and we understand that that was wrong. And when you see the video, you will understand that that was wrong. So how can we all understand that it's wrong, yet here we are today with a no bill and no indictments of the people who committed the act? The worst part of this is these young people have had to deal with this for 2 years. They had to sit here and wonder what was going to happen. It's been through one DA's office who kicked it and punted it to another DA's office, and neither did anything. And they had to wait 2 years, adding insult to injury and anxiety to physical pain. We are now going to move into the civil phase of this case. We filed a lawsuit in June of last year, and we're going to pursue that lawsuit heavily. So as we move forward, make sure you watch the video, understand what you're seeing, and you tell yourself or ask yourself, is what you're seeing commensurate with the force that's being used? I'm going to pass it back to Malcolm.
So we, as Justin stated, we want to be clear that it's our opinion that this is what this ruling is, what this decision that was made is a re-victimization of these young people. They were victimized by these officers, and now they have been re-victimized by this system. We are very much disappointed with what we think is this document. This document is supposed to speak truth. It didn't speak truth about these young people. Instead, this is a professional hit job. They called into question the truthfulness and the veracity of these young people because one said they thought they left at 7 or 8, and the other said they thought they left at 9. Clearly, if they left at 7 o'clock, they would have been driving around for 2 hours and 45 minutes. But they highlight that like it's, oh my God, a got you moment. But that's the kind of really unethical kind of behavior that comes along with this kind of re-victimization of these young people. And it's sad and it's sickening. And finally, a lot of our young people, when you see them marching through the street, they have a statement that they have made. And that statement that they have made has been really, really clear. And what they say is the whole damn system is guilty as hell. The whole damn system is guilty as hell. That's how I feel right now, having practiced law for over 20 years in the state of Georgia. This whole damn system is guilty as hell as what they have done to these young people. And we want to be clear about that. I'd like to bring forward Messiah to just share some thoughts. Obviously, we have ongoing litigation, so they won't be able to answer any questions, but he does have a statement, and Tanaya as well. They both have statements they'd like to share. Messiah.
Thank you all for being here.
I'd just like to start by saying the
Excuse
decision
me,
that
guys.
was
It's y'all park right here. Yeah,
very unfortunate, very disappointing. I think that we all were able to see that there was definitely unnecessary force used. The entire situation did not need to escalate to the point that it did. Every day is a trying moment. Every day, I'm still reminded of the unfortunate situation that occurred that night. Police are still able to brutalize American citizens on a daily basis. It's still happening week by week. And the fact that there's been no change, and the fact that this is still an ongoing problem is very, very upsetting. This was something that was brought on to me. We never wanted to be in this situation. All of the actions that were taken that night were escalated by the police, the Atlanta Police Department. At this moment, I'm not going to let this define who I am as a person and define my life, but I am going to do all I can to fight this and make sure that people are people don't continue to live in this unjust system and continue to be brutalized. There needs to be change, and I'm going to do all I can for victims across America, for myself, so that this doesn't continue to happen.
Anaya.
Hi everyone, thank you guys for being here. I just want to say, just the same way I was scared almost the exact day 2 years ago, I'm still terrified now, especially knowing that the people who caused so much trauma and harm to me and Messiah are able to walk free and go on about their lives. This is our real lives. We have to live with this every single day, and it's very hard to navigate your life when you have something like this going on, especially as a young person who is just really being able to start life. Yeah, and I just want to say it's very scary. It's very sad that we're still going through this 2 years later. And like Messiah said, we'll continue to use our voices to try to make sure things like this don't get swept under the rug, and we'll try to make sure we can bring as much attention to a situation like this. Thank you so much.
We'll take any questions that you might have about litigation.
Can you talk about what happens next? I know Justin, you touched on it. Can you talk about what is the next step after this?
We are full steam ahead with the civil litigation. Both of our firms are working diligently to begin taking depositions to get all of the evidence that this district attorney used to make this decision. We intend on using that same evidence to prosecute the civil case to the fullest extent of the civil law.
What different things can come out of the civil case versus this one?
We believe that their civil rights were violated and that we have sufficient evidence that they were. There are so many things that were in this 26-page document that, again, it just felt like this was such a spin put on this. The first page and a half of just critiquing and blaming the victim, saying how diligent Atlanta was in getting out the word that this 9 p.m. curfew was in effect, and essentially questioning how could they have not known. Those kinds of absurdities. And remember, the level of violence that we all witnessed was based on a curfew violation. I don't want us to miss that Tanaya was never charged, and that Messiah, his ticket, his citations were ultimately dismissed. So this wasn't about any violent acts towards the police. This was about violence from the police directed towards these 2 college students.
And it was a curfew violation. It was a curfew violation as a result of the worst civil rights violation we've seen in the history of America. So in response to that, we come to Atlanta and we have another civil rights violation because we have a curfew in response to the worst civil rights violation any of us have ever seen. It's ridiculous, and this is why we're prosecuting the city.
Were y'all's clients aware that the curfew was in place at the time?
No,
Even?
no. Half of the city didn't know that the curfew was in place. I would love for you all, please do as best you can. What time was that even announced? How was it announced? Right? Those are the issues that were not addressed at all in this report. In most instances, and I know all of you all being seasoned reporters, in most instances, law enforcement always talks about split-second decisions. Here they go frame by frame. Why? Because that's to their benefit. If it's a split-second decision with multiple officers yelling and screaming, busting windows and tasing, and things are happening, why do we do frame by frame in this instance when normally when we're dealing with civil rights, it's always, the police officers had a split-second decision that they had to make. And that wasn't what was happening in the car with these two young people who are not trained for this kind of violence. I think we should really take a harder look at that.
Obviously, 2 weeks later, Rayshard Brooks was shot and killed by Atlanta police in the parking lot of that South Atlanta Wendy's. In y'all's opinion, I mean, how does this bode for that case, which is still pending?
Well, that case is a case that we're also working on, and it is still open and ongoing, so we don't want to talk too much about it. But it is also in response to the same thing, the same climate, the same year, the same time in American history. So we are seeing that these things are repeating themselves. So one by one, we have to handle these situations. The George Floyd situation was handled the way that it was. This one is playing out the way that it is, and we'll work on the Rayshard Brooks one when we get to that one as well.
What does justice look like for Kaya and Kaya right now?
We believe these civil cases should be resolved. We think it's time for the city of Atlanta, a city that our calling card is civil rights, is human rights. Our calling card is treating people humanely and justly. We think that the city is time for them to step up and say, we need to try to resolve this matter. If not, we're prepared to go to trial. And it just feels as though these young people don't need to continue to relive this experience. The city doesn't need to continue to relive this experience. But if that is the decision of the city of Atlanta, then so be it.
Any ethics for the officers?
This is not over. This is not over.
The initial response to this from city leaders seemed to be very swift in denouncing what happened to you two, and now it seems to have changed so abruptly. What do you think contributed to that change in perspective by our city leaders and the public?
This is very easy. During that time, there was unrest. They wanted it to stop. Everybody was watching, and it stopped, right? So now there's not unrest. Everybody's at peace, and now they're back to business as usual. So we're here to make sure that business does not continue as usual, that we keep pushing forward for civil rights, especially for these two young people.
How old are your clients now?
I'm 22.
Yeah. 24. And are y'all still students? Have you graduated?
So they have had to go through a lot. This has disrupted their lives, to say the least. So the trajectory that they were both on has been disrupted. This has been hard to manage and deal with for both of them and for their families, because there has not been any resolution. There's not been a reckoning, and that's what's problematic about this in this decision. It just really, again, attempts to protect law enforcement in a way that frustrates people. And so I think when Justin and their team achieved a great verdict in George Floyd, we were all asked, does this send a different message? Have things changed? And everybody was asking all of us that same question. Every civil rights attorney in the country, I think, was asked that question. I think we can say confidently now that it did not. It did not.
Mr. Davis, what would you say to the current mayor and the police chief when if they consider returning these cops back to their posts? What would you say to the mayor and the chief to be considering that?
I think the ruling sends a message to all police in APD, in Georgia, and across the country that what happened to them was okay. And so I think it's dangerous for them to be back on the street. And I think that this decision, as much as the system thinks that it's protecting its own, it's only further jeopardizing the lives of law enforcement and citizens by coming down with something like this.
Mr. Davis, right here. In regards to these officers and their history of their employment, is there anything within the history of their employment that could have prevented this if the city had acted and terminated these officers, because they have several violations that are known throughout the history and their friends and through their alma maters, all through the city? We all know these officers and what they've done. So could the city have prevented this?
Well, listen, the civil case is starting, and the information that we're going to get in the civil case will be information that we share with you all. So I believe, and I'm saying I believe, but I know that a lot of the questions you have will be answered very shortly.
As far as the civil case, how successful do you think you're going to be when the city doesn't have general liability insurance?
Well, when you say successful, you're talking about monetarily
Yes,
successful.
yes.
At this point, and I feel this way about every case. Monetarily successful is not going to change these children, these kids, these young adults back to who they were. It's not going to put them back on the trajectory that Mally was talking about earlier. So, monetary things are nice, but we want justice. And the only way you get that is to let the system know that this cannot continue. So whatever else happens after that, we're okay.
Okay, one more question over here. In other employment, like policemen or fire department, we see people being bonded and having a license. Do you think that your office as a lawyer may push for police to have insurance, that they have to be bonded and then they lose that opportunity to police our streets? Are you working on anything like that?
We have collectively been pushing for the city of Atlanta to have insurance, as many jurisdictions have. Justin, their practice is a national practice, and they encountered a number of cities who have insurance and jurisdictions who have insurance. It's shameful that the city of Atlanta does not. And that's problematic because people are injured and hurt. Citizens of Atlanta are injured and hurt. Students that are invited to our best institutions are injured and hurt. And then there's no insurance to cover their injuries. It just is really absurd that we are in that position in 2022.
It's illegal to
City
drive.
insurance, but what about police insurance, individual police accountability?
No, they should have that. I mean, that's common sense. We all know that's common sense, but this does not work like common sense should work, and we all know that. What we're seeing across the country is that when something happens, they get rid of the officers. And even if they have insurance, you can't get it because they fire the officers, and they know that they can do this, and they continuously do this. And they make it harder for people to have some type of recourse when they're harmed by someone acting in a manner they should not. So for you, as a common citizen, it would affect you in a different way. But as a person who is paid to protect us, they are thrown out, and then there's no recourse for these people. What I will say to you is this: you need to think about this and talk to your elected officials and tell them we would all like to have some insurance that specifically covers these people to protect us, because we need protection.
You're in a better position if an officer runs you over with their vehicle than you are if they gun you down. There's insurance on the vehicles, but not insurance as it relates to civil rights violations. That's the status of where we are right now in the city of Atlanta.
How do we get to that point? Because it sounds absurd, as you said.
We've been trying to get to that point, and we still are working towards that point. But that's not happening very quickly, as you can see, and we're just going to continue working towards it. That's what we do.
The governor signed the 828 bill last year. I would say it was last year, maybe earlier. How's that going to play into citizens, regular citizens getting justice? Because it seems like it gave police officers more cover and to do what they've been doing in the city.
Well, fortunately, the governor can't trump the United States Constitution. Our fight, our claims are constitutional claims, that they violated these young people's constitutional rights. And so we are in federal court. We'll continue on that path. We believe that we'll be successful because you can believe your lying eyes. That's what they're trying to tell you. Don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe what you've watched. That's how crazy this is that they would think All of the videos, all of the body cam footage, all of that. Don't believe that. Just read this 26-page document where we assassinate the character of 2 college students who've never been in trouble before. That's the message.
And let me say this, there are officers doing it right. The force that you use for a specific situation has to be commensurate to the threat of that specific situation. And this is not what we're seeing. And luckily, these young people did not die. They're still here with us today so that they can tell their story, so they can tell you how it's affected them. But that force, you will see it on the video, and that's why I say everyone should go back and watch this video and then reread what they said when they told us they're not going to indict these officers.
Can you tell us who's here to support Kaya?
We have the family, the father, Messiah's father is here. We have one of our civil rights attorneys and advocates who's present, Miguel Dominguez, who has been consistently, wherever there has been trials and tribulations, he's joined us, whether he represents someone or not. He's always joined us in support. We have the family of Tanaya Pilgrim, her mother, aunt, sister, both of her sisters are here. So the blessing is that these 2 young people have families that support them. But we also want the community to know that they need continued support and prayer. Their families do. That when you go through something like this and you continue to go through it, the community needs to rally in support of these young people in a way that acknowledges that what happened to them was wrong. That this 26-page document does not reflect the sentiment of our community and how we feel about what happened to them and about them as young college students. We don't want them to be discouraged. We want them to continue to move forward in their lives and continue to realize their dreams. But as an older man, something like this would be devastating to me, to know that I was assaulted and then re-victimized, and that there's no justice from this criminal justice system.
What are their majors in college, and have those majors changed now that they've experienced a civil rights violation?
Psychology and business. Psychology and business, they haven't changed, but their engagement in community work is increasing.
Can we have one more? We'll take one more.
I remember the last press conference the dad said about his son that his whole temperament has changed since this has happened. Do you see a difference now?
No, I don't see a difference. I think as we continue to encounter triggers as this, there's some reverting that takes place. Us as parents, yes, we want to see his progress and see the 2 of them moving forward. But again, there's roadblocks like this that we encounter. And so I want to say no, there has not been a change whatsoever. There has been an attempt to practice certain methods to get better. However, again, you run into triggers like we did yesterday, and we're almost back in square one.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you all.